In Chilean jails, even in the colectivo jails, you're in a room that's maybe 1.5 meters by maybe 2 meters, with 7 or 8 beds stacked up, sometimes five levels
Oh,
of bunks, and that many people in that small a space, with everything to deal with, from the music to the farts to the foul language to the loud television, whatever else. I mean,
yeah.
you are there suffering with those people, and only one toilet for up to 50 people.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 364. And I'm talking to John Cobin, who lives in Chile. He's also lived in America. He's been a professor of economics. And John spent some time in prison, and we're going to talk about that and how that, what that says about the current political situation in Chile right now. So, how are you, John?
Well, that's a big question for somebody to ask, I guess, be thinking about when he's been in prison for almost 6 years. Yeah, I'm better now than I was before, but it had took a tremendous toll on my health, and financial, economic impact was almost immeasurable. There's a lot of downsides, but like I said, a downside, excuse me, but much better now than I was, 8 months
Yes,
ago when I was in prison.
you can't really get all that time back.
No.
And it probably doesn't impact your health positively. So, John, you live in Viña del Mar, I believe, which is that near Valparaiso?
Well, they're sister cities. It's the same
Yeah,
metro area. Yeah.
yeah, that's actually on the coast. It's one of the larger cities in Chile, but it's not as big as Santiago. And you've been in Chile since when?
Well, I first arrived in 1996, so almost 30 years ago. But I did go back to America to live there for the most part between 2000 and end of 2000 and the middle of towards the end of 2008. So about 7 years, I was up there most of the time, but still in Chile a fair amount.
Yeah, and you've got family there. What's your situation down there now?
I just live with my wife, Pamela. My children have lived with me on and off down here. Not recently, especially not since prison, but for many years. My children, with the exception of the youngest two, pretty much are very bilingual.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah. Give your kids the gift of a second language. It's a great. That's a great thing to give to them, and they can go live anywhere. And
Mhm.
hopefully, they have multiple citizenships too. Anyway, John. So you can let's go back. Let's go back to the situation in 2019. This is what happened when you were arrested and all this stuff. What was going on back in 2019 in Chile?
On October 18th, they began something called the Estallido Social, which is the social upheaval. And that date, the 18th, was the day when Presidente Virela, in the 1950s, basically hacked off the Communist Party supporters he had after he got elected, and used the communists to get himself elected, and then booted them out of his cabinet. And the communists have always hated that fact, and so on October 18th, they chose that day to begin looting, destroying, burning in a form I couldn't even ever imagine. 118 metro stations affected. I think 15 of them were completely burned down. Couldn't be used for many months. And the NL Tower, which is the founder or the owner of the metro line, its skyscraper was put up in flames.
Mm-hmm.
Many other buildings were burned, government buildings. I think there were 60 something government buildings, many big supermarkets. Um, and there were rioters going around the streets just destroying things. The only reason they stopped was because of COVID. I was in jail when
Yes.
that happened, but it was a tremendous upheaval. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen in my life.
And this is referred to on Wikipedia as the social outburst.
Yeah,
And
you
and
could
this
call
all
it
started with yeah,
upheaval. Yeah.
yeah. Well, or estallido estallido social, and this was, an increase in the metro subway's fare and cost of living, and just a lot of things, and
Yeah, it went up like
protest
1%,
against
right?
inequality. I mean, it was basically the standard socialists and the
Right.
and there was no centralized leadership on this side, although one group might be called the Primera Linea,
Hmm.
which is and there's also anarchists. I mean, something like the Chilean version of Antifa, I guess, is what you could say, right?
Antifa, right? That's right. They were the ones involved. The metro fare went up like it was either 1 or 2 cents for a ride, so it was minimal. But it was just an excuse that was used to cause chaos and destabilize the Piñera regime government, which is sort of a central left government at the time.
Yeah. So these protests were happening, and at least, and granted, I'm looking up Wikipedia. Just says this all started, and a curfew was declared on 19 October, and just so tell us what happened. So I think we've got the background here, right? So so what happened for you then? How this impact your own life?
Well, yeah, a number of us who have more libertarian or Christian principles and want to help our neighbor, kind of thing, or show love for neighbor, we're willing to go out and help the police defend against the mob violence that would show up in town. And November 7th and 6th, the left, mainly communists, but also a lot of other rabble and low lifes, would come around and just destroy things. And they were going to come into Reñaca, a little town. It's kind of a part of Viña del Mar in the north end, and a nicer part of town. And so on a few days beforehand, as I think I mentioned last show, I showed up with 350 yellow jackets. They were kind of like the yellow vesters that were being
Yes.
in France, right? And so we were there, willing to put a buffer between ourselves and these horde of people. It was wasn't much we could do against 5,000 or 4,000 people that were moving through. They all brought backpacks full of rocks and other incendiary devices to burn things down. And we were going to try to do our best because the government put 15 carabineros, that's the cops, on the street. And that obviously wasn't going to do much either. And then they took off their uniforms so they could blend in. A few of them stood out there in plain clothes when we were there. When I went out the next time, I was alone. I thought, well, we heard the call to go out, but it was canceled, and I didn't get the message, and so I was there alone, and that's when the trouble started for me.
Yeah. So tell us about some of this trouble. Yeah. You've got your own Wikipedia page from this. I noticed John
Well,
Cobin. Yes.
I'm afraid I'm famous all over the place for many reasons, and yeah, the left writes that gibberish nonsense, poppycock, malarkey, whatever, make up all sorts of stuff. I go on sometimes to try to correct it, give them some data that's accurate. So there's a
Yes.
little bit in there that might be accurate.
And Reñaca is Renaca. Yes. So just
Correct.
anybody
Yeah.
wants to look that up. Yes.
Yeah. So, well, I was called by the left a white supremacist, a racist, even though I've got my favorite professor in the world was Walter Williams, who was black, and my wife's Latina, and I wrote articles in favor of Haitian immigration. They're all black, and I also have never been a racist in my life. I've got children, married, but they're very blonde. But their wife, one wife, Anthea, is very black, like she came right off the boat from Africa, from the slave traders, and still maintains that genetic complex. Don't care, still love her. Same with my daughter who married Jordan, who is very black, lives in South Carolina. Don't care. Doesn't It's not an issue for me. But anyway, I've been called
Yes.
a white supremacist and a profligate from justice, and a person who stole money from people at Gold Schools, Chile, and I mean, a lot of lies. They just do that down here. It's just part of their game plan. Just tell lies. I'm used to it. I've been in this fight as a libertarian for many years, 30 years at least, and I'm used to having eggs thrown at me or whatever else they can do. And I just don't care anymore. They can do whatever they want. I'll just keep telling the truth.
Yes. I guess this is what happens sometimes when you It's kind of the sacrifices you make when you go out and you have to go out here and fight these fights. It's
Yeah, nobody believes them, by the way, except for a few people a bunch of people on the left. They're just preaching to their choir and nonsense. But people who know me or my wife or my children, I mean, they know it's all a bunch of nonsense. I am a member of the League of the South, proudly, but the League of the South is not a racist organization, although the left accuses it of being
yeah.
that. That's about the closest thing they could get.
Different people join the League of the South for different reasons, John. You know, but anyway, so what happened? You know, how'd all this happen? I want to go over this again. You know, let's pretend I don't know anything about this. Yeah.
Well, I went down there not with the intention of shooting anybody, and I didn't actually shoot anybody, as we found out later. But I do have my gun with me, as I always had in the U.S. If you look at my website, policyofliberty.com, and go to the criminal case button, you'll see all sorts of evidence there. My former concealed weapon permits in the U.S. There's also other images of my weapons registrations here in Chile. I've been a law abider, although as a libertarian and as a Christian, I don't think it's right to have to register guns and all that. That's a different, beside the point. But I haven't been disrespectful or rebellious of the current law. And that day I had my gun with me because I had the license, which you can see on my webpage, to transport it in my vehicle. And the gun club was just a block away or 2 blocks from where this all occurred. It was closed that day, and they made a big scandal out of that. But people in Chile, as long as they have a credential with a gun club, can always have their gun with them because they're always welcome in any gun club in Chile, no matter where they go. So gun club members routinely have guns with them. It wasn't just me. It wasn't unusual. But at any rate, that was a big stink for them here, is that I had a gun. In the U.S., I carried it under my suit coat for 10, 15 years. I mean, I routinely had my 9mm with me all the time. And as a libertarian, I believe in the Second Amendment and guns. And although in Chile it's very different, very limited, I still did everything I could to maintain my ability to have our firearms to protect me. And thank God I had it this day, even though I went to jail for it, because they would have killed me otherwise. And as you know, it's better to be 6 months in prison than 6 feet under.
Yes, better. They like to say better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's also, I've heard that one too. Yeah. Unfortunately, here it was 6 years because of the lies they put forward. But at any rate, in that day, I was down there and I was looking to find those yellow jackets again. There were the 350 that I mentioned before that were a few days, I think 3 days earlier on the 7th. On the 10th, I was there and they weren't there. It was called off, and all of a sudden I'm caught on a one-way street with traffic all around me, just hordes of people streaming there, drunk, according to testimony, and drugged out, and of course violent, ready to just come out and come unglued and attack the place, just like they had Central Viña del Mar. In Central Viña del Mar, they not only painted stuff, they broke glass and broke into places. They pushed BMWs out of the second-story showroom window onto the ground. You know, I mean, just nasty vandalism and destruction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, it was a very serious time. I mean, they burned down many Catholic churches, many other. I mean, it was a very, very terrible time in Chile to see what the left does with violence. And so I was ready and prepared that I might even die that day. I mean, it's one of the things you do as you're raised in America, at any rate, that you do your part. If somebody's attacking your city, you know, you go down. Even though I'm a little bit old, I still could go down and do something against the people that were trying to harm me and the other people who live here. I don't think I'm any different than any other American would have done. I'm very different than what Chileans do. They tend to be cowardly idolaters who prefer their security and their tranquility, as they call it, and time with their family than helping somebody else. They won't ever put their own necks on the line for anybody else. Hardly any of them. There's a few, like Sebastián Izquierdo and a couple others that came out and did the same thing I did. But at any rate, I was down there alone, unfortunately, and they were yelling and obscenities at me. And when they saw my yellow vest, and they immediately started heckling me and causing trouble. And I was stopped at the stoplight. They had a little routine. They were called "No baile, no pasa," and they wanted me to get out of the car and dance. I didn't know that because I don't speak the dialect that they use. It's called flight day or whatever. I didn't understand.
You were in a car. What kind of car were you in?
It was a Hyundai. Um,
So you were in a fairly cheap car, is what I'm saying. You weren't in some,
I,
in $100,000 Rolls
I
Royce.
totally made a mistake. I must be late. I have a Mahindra. It's a pickup truck from India. The car behind me that took out the bullet was the Hyundai, and I guess that was stuck in my mind. If you'd like, I can share the screen and show you some videos.
Uh, yeah, if we want to see some videos, let's see those videos. I mean, these are your videos, right? They're not copyrighted or anything, right?
Well, they're on the internet. They're not. I didn't wasn't videotaping my situation, but they're all over the news service. They're published videos. So
Well,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Yeah, I just want to be aware of copyrights and stuff like that, John. I don't want to do anything that might get me in trouble with the copyright police on here. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know what. I'm wondering how do I share my screen here with you?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we need to see the videos. I mean, I think we pretty much got the gist of this anyway. So you had a fairly basic car, but they could see that you had the yellow vest in the car, and this was on November 10th. You said. So what happened after that?
Well, when they began, when I didn't get out to dance, which is what they wanted, I thought they were trying to rob my car, and there was good reason for that, by the way. There had been these things called enceronas all through Chile. That's where they block you in the front and the back, and they force you to get out, and then they steal your car. And I thought that's what they were planning to do. I didn't know what they were going to do. Maybe they're just going to be violent. And there were people you can hear in the video if you wanted to hear it, we could play it. You know, kill him or son of a bitch, kill him. They said. So they were very violent, and throwing beer bottles at my truck and trying to hit it with sticks and kicking it and whatever. It sounded like thunder.
Yeah. What kind of damage was there to the vehicle?
Well, my wife took it into the body shop, and apparently it was $1,300 worth of damage. So it had to be repainted and completely the dents taken out. It was pretty badly beaten up, and of course the windows, they broke out one completely, and some other ones were damaged, from what I understand as well. So she took care of all that. I was in jail. I didn't have firsthand knowledge of all those aspects, but anyway, it was a serious threat. I mean, there's little question about it. That there people question why I stopped after after I cleared them away. I accelerated to get them off my bumper while they were shaking my car, and it worked. But then I stopped again, and it's true. I was really ticked that they were hammering on my car like that. But it was just a few seconds that I was stopped, and all of a sudden the horde was already on me and surrounding me. And a guy named Sebastian Valdez Munoz opened my driver's side door, and cops saw him do it. There's footage of him doing it. He admitted to doing it in court. Yeah. And that to me is a very aggressive act, because he claimed he just wanted to open my door and talk to me. Well,
right. Think of it as a home invasion. Somebody trying to get into your house. I mean, that's your car.
Well, people who are beating on your car and calling you and threatening to kill you and stuff, and then they open the door. You got to presume the worst. And so I already had my gun out. I'd shown them my pistol and said, "I'm serious. I've never had to present my pistol, by the way, in public before that. All those years in the U.S. carrying it." And I did so to persuade them to leave me alone. And they didn't. They just got angrier. It didn't matter. They were really trained people, and it seemed like communists or whatever. Who knows? But they when they opened the door, I shot at the ground. I thought at first it was twice. Some people said it was only once, and then maybe it was. I could have slipped my mind, but I'm pretty sure it was twice. And supposedly those ricochets, or one ricochet at any rate, hurt a guy named Luis Almada Viega. Ricochet going into his thigh. I really should show you some videos of not necessarily the event, but the ones that are on YouTube that are published, and they're linked so that you don't have to worry about copyright anything. If you would like. Videos? Yeah, it shows you what happens when a bullet hits the ground, because a lot of people watch cartoons when they're young and think that bullets that are made of soft lead and copper can bounce off of hard surfaces, and it's not true. It's a complete fallacy.
So these are your videos of what happened. Is that correct?
This is a video that's on YouTube. It's on my website, but it's linked there. So if I call it up, then the YouTube gets credit and the guy gets paid. So I don't think you have to worry about anybody's copyright there. That's what they want. They want you to look at their video. But
Well,
I don't.
you never know. Yeah.
It's very worth. It's very worth doing. There must be a way to share the screen here. I see this one says videos down below.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's
Oh, here
hard
it
to
is.
say really. Yeah.
I do see it. Okay, hang on a second. You'll be quite pleased, I think, to be able to see this. Let me open this if I can.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting the way this happened. I mean, so you were just out. People were recording this all over the place. It sounds like, yeah.
Right. This is I'm going to make this larger. Can you see this? What I'm sharing?
This is a chart. Looks like.
No, it should be. I
edit
changed
contact details.
Yeah, I changed the screen, so it should be different now.
No, it's edit contact details. This is
How about
not. Now? Okay, criminal case defense against state persecution.
Yeah, this is my website that I created with artificial intelligence. All right, and this shows just basic things about the case, like the physics law violations, energy deficit. You know, after a ricochet, you lose energy and you can't possibly penetrate things with most of the time, even if it did bounce. Lack of an exit hole in Almada's pants. Bullet did not pass through the thigh. What caused the injury? Chemical analysis. They said I shot copper bullets, but yet found lead and convicted me based on, or one of the things they convicted me on was that there were lead residues. And there was also legitimate self-defense.
I didn't know they made copper bullets. You know, Superman, of course, has trouble seeing through lead. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, these are environmentally friendly bullets. They make solid copper. And I've got, this is me filing cases at the National Office for the District Attorney. These are the judges or the prosecutors, excuse me, the sons.
Lots of women here, I see.
Yeah, they're the top two are rumored to be, or at least one of them is a lesbian, and perhaps they both are. I don't know. I mean, I probably shouldn't even say that because it's a rumor I've heard only. I don't know. The ones down below on the second line are members of the Communist Party. I think all of them down there, but especially those first couple people. They work for something called the Institute of Derechos Humanos, or Human Rights, and they were on my case also. The woman here on the left, she was one who filed against Pinochet for his extradition in London in 1999.
Yeah, they really look like some really nice lefties. I can tell. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you see what he says here. You know, he's redder than any communist, and he wanted John to suffer more and asked the court to move John to a cell block other than Valparaiso 118. That's where the military and the cops go, who are accused. That's a nicer place to be. He claimed in earlier proceedings that no one was more dangerous for society than a libertarian. He's a total commie. They both are. And the guy over here on the left, next one over, is also this Burgos guy. All of them here. Every one of them is somewhere on the left, and the first two are total communists. Down here, by the way, this is my permits. We're making a big deal out of my case here and suing the states. That's why I have all this website. So well done. I had concealed weapons permits in various states and also in Chile. We could see that if I open that up. And then the appeals court. This is the guy who denied my pardon. He's another hardcore leftist. He also said, just like the appeals court, that I have to be denied parole or pardon because of my beliefs, values, and attitudes gained in the United States, and my eloquence. So those are the reasons why I have to be kept in prison, just like North Korea. So those are all documents you could read here. There's no question about it. Down below, I have the different police reports and expertise, and I'm showing, for instance, at the hospital that there was no exit wound, or the police report saying in the pants there was no hole in the pants. I mean, it wasn't a bullet that struck the guy; stabbed himself, or someone else stabbed him.
And this was out of a pistol, right?
Correct.
So it's not.
That's
So
right.
it's not. It's
And
not.
so
It's
here,
not like
if
it's
I've
out of a
got one that's
rifle.
45 degrees,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I'm
So
carrying a
anyway.
pistol in the car. Yeah. And,
Okay. Yeah. I'll just.
at 45, you can see
Yeah.
it also be destroyed. So
Yes.
there's, and we could go through and see all this until you get to 30 degrees. You don't have a ricochet. All right.
Yeah.
But at 15,
Yeah.
like you said, it will go through. It won't necessarily kill a person, but it'll still go through. All right, now I'm going to
Okay.
go
Well.
back to, oh,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
have
So
I come
that's
back?
interesting. So we did. So you stopped your car and naturally, and somebody tried to invade your car. So naturally, you thought you were kind of threatened, and not quite, not the same as a home invasion, but you kind of see the car as your little home. So it was like a home invasion in a lot of ways. Yeah. And you considered that a threatening move, and
Well, of
you have
course.
no idea what
Yeah.
these people are going to do. And so then the gun goes off, and
Well, I have an idea because they said they're going to kill me. If they said they're going to kill you, you have an idea that they might kill you. They might be kidding. You don't know. But
yeah,
you know, they also might. Well, they might kill you. That's all you can say, I guess, about it.
and there were lots of people
In a
around here,
moment,
so they easily could have done it. There was just one of you and dozens of them.
and they had been throwing rocks at me, sticks, beer bottles, telling people lynch them. One gal named Valeria
Yes.
Catalina Silva said
Yeah.
that she heard them say they wanted to lynch me. So I mean,
Yeah.
it was a pretty good indication they wanted to do some violence against me. That's without any question.
Yeah. And you could have gotten killed. And did you have any injuries from this, or what happened?
No, no, of course not. No, I fired, and that scared them off. So I had no injuries.
Yeah.
Thank God from that.
So if more
Uh,
honest Chileans had guns, there would probably be less of this.
Of course, yeah, and that they believe the leftist lie that if you just disarm most people and just leave criminals with guns, life's better, or the police with guns, life's
Yeah.
better.
What is the general attitude toward guns in Chile?
Scared to death of them, think they're all evil and bad. If you touch one, you got a serious problem. I mean, they just all the leftist myths that you heard in the U.S. are common fare down here. It's just what they believe. It's pretty incredible.
They're common pretty much everywhere, unfortunately. I really am glad we've resisted this in America. It seems like this is the only place where it has been resisted. So,
Correct.
yeah. Well, it's resisted in Switzerland, but that's about it. So once this happens, so then you shoot your gun once, and nobody is. Are there any injuries resulting from that, or?
Well, they say that there is, but we know from the video you just saw. They all agree I shot to the ground. Okay, almost no one. They were testifying initially that I shot directly at them, but this didn't hold up very well because the injury the guy has is ascending and through his thigh, and so I couldn't very well do that with a bullet. It has to be descending or unless it hits the ground first, and the ricochet theory is true. But a soft lead bullet is destroyed. It's what they call spalling. It's fragmented. And so
Yes.
they claim that my pistol, which was about 110 centimeters, maybe 1 meter above the pavement level, as they opened my door, and I did this across my body, down towards the ground. It was. I put it at 110 centimeters, just estimating from the videos when I look at him. His injury was at 75, and he was 3.43 meters away, which is not true either. If you look in the videos I got on my website there, he's nowhere to be seen there. He was at the bumper, and he was definitely at the scene, but he wasn't where the carabineros and the cops said he was. But yeah, supposedly I had a ricochet angle that was sufficient to bounce off the pavement, the hard concrete surface. And if it was at 70 degrees, the bullet's totally wasted. If it's 22 degrees that I'm shooting, that's my angle. It would hit his foot. and then it would have to bounce up at like 80 degrees to hit him in the thigh, and then it'd have to turn in midair so that the canal injury through his leg would be 12 degrees. It's worse than the JFK theory, the magic bullet. It's ridiculous because it can't possibly bounce. And then there's other problems, like there's no exit hole. There's a 7 millimeter entrance hole. My bullets are 10.6 millimeters. Okay, maybe it made a smaller hole. Then the wound size is 20 millimeters by 1 or by 10, excuse me, which is way bigger, which is right behind the pants. How did that happen? And then there's a fragment of some kind of metal inside, they said, at the hospital. They don't have an exit wound. And I can show you on the website also, he's just not bandaging up the backside. Nobody's treating the backside. And the pants don't have an exit hole. They only have an entrance hole. A bullet didn't hit the guy. If it was a bullet, it would have gone all the way through him. And it's not possible that it was a ricochet. But anyway, so the science looks really bad for them. And right now we're trying. My lawyer just filed another complaint asking how this could be done, how this could be overlooked. Was it a conspiracy or what's going on? This is clear evidence that it was not a bullet that hurt this guy. He just made it up. Maybe stabbed himself. I don't know. Later on, like 90 or 87 days later, he showed up at this forensics coroner's office, kind of like their equivalent of CSI from the days of Fred Flintstone. And the guy never had any kind of interview with him before those 87 days, but found an exit scar of 23 millimeters by 13 millimeters on his backside, right under his buttocks, which wasn't treated or anything else before. It's kind of like maybe the Communist Party told him, yeah, you need to stab yourself in the back so it looks like we actually had a shot go through you. But he didn't. He just proclaimed it to be a bullet wound. There's no evidence that it was a bullet wound, and bullet wounds don't leave square or rectangular holes anyway, twice as big as the bullet. That's also stupid. Maybe the exit hole could be, but not the entrance hole. So the whole thing was a sham. It was just a montaje, is what we call it in Chile. It's a frame up to try to get me enough sentence to get me in jail, because they couldn't get me on the gun charges. Mine was registered, and I had a right to transport it, and I shot it from the vehicle, not outside. Although it landed outside, obviously. So that was
everything you did carrying that gun was legal, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Totally legal. And they didn't charge me with having illegal carry of a gun or anything. They said firing it in unjustifiably in public was illegal, and they convicted me for 3 years of prison for shooting it in public. It's so stupid in Chile. It's like if you go down to the beach and launch one over the ocean, that's in public. You have to go to jail for 3 years. And if you do it twice, you have to go minimum 5 years to jail. That's how idiotic the public policy is in this country when it comes to gun use. They think that's intelligent. That it just shows the primate nature of the Chilean brain still. But anyway, that's another issue entirely. We believe that if somebody's trying to attack me and kill me, and they open my door and they're shouting that they're going to kill me, I have a right to defend myself. And so it was legitimate self-defense. They say, no, I should only respond with sticks or rocks or spit at them or something. And that would be okay because it's not disproportional. That's what they ultimately ruled. The gun is just disproportional. I've got to take on 20 young men with a rock in my hand, if I happen to have one, to attack them while they're attacking me. That's the only form of legitimate defense for them. Other monkey kind of culture here that comes up with the legal system. There was another one because I drove on another 80 meters or so, and I got out of the car and I was scanning. You can see me in the videos scanning and looking across the crowd and trying to find, if there's anybody really trying to kill me. There was no other reason to stop. I didn't pull the trigger. I was cool. I was calm. When I was scanning, I was looking at it with a gun, but I didn't fire at the crowd. And I didn't see anybody, and I was going to leave, and all of a sudden, a couple of apes ran up and they started throwing rocks. I had at least two or probably three. Yes. You can see in the video coming. The rain of rocks coming at me. So the one guy nearby, I opened up again. 2 more shots near him, towards him, not directly at him, but also ricocheted off the pavement into the corner. But they claim that one of those went 52 meters, bounced off the pavement, and then at a 2-degree dissension, and then it ricocheted up at 15 degrees, which is physically impossible. A ricochet cannot be more than the angle of incidence. If it's at 2 degrees, it can't be more than 2 degrees. It's like Newton's law, or a billiard ball would be the same, right? You don't shoot at 45 and come out with a 90-degree rebound or ricochet off the wall of a pool table.
Yeah,
it could be less, but anyway,
bullets ricochet. If you remember when Ronald Reagan got shot, the bullet actually had ricocheted off the outside of the car and went into his chest.
It can't ricochet more than it's more than 30-degree angle, as you just saw in the video.
Yeah,
it's just physically impossible. No, all bullets are either lead or copper, and they're unable to ricochet at steep angles. It just cannot happen, and it cannot happen at more than the angle of incidence.
So what happened after the shooting?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say quickly that the radiator one with the car was also quite interesting, because not only does it defy physics, but supposedly it went into a radiator and left a hole 2.5 centimeters wide, although my bullet was only 1 centimeter, a little over 1 centimeter wide, then penetrated the liquid inside and the other side of it, and then went out and left a horseshoe-shaped hole in the gearbox and went inside and disappeared. They never found any bullet. You think if it goes inside a gearbox, there would be a bullet there, right? No, they found some dust from lead, but then they determined that I shot an all-copper bullet and said, well, that's how it penetrated or something. But then they used lead as how can copper produce lead? And crazy. And also the hole is not smooth. When you shoot through a bullet in metal, it's smooth going in because it doesn't come back out. But the hole is rough. The edges were rough, like somebody had stabbed it with something like a big, pick or whatever, and then pulled it back out. And the pulling it back out makes the hole rough. So it was another sham. It has nothing to do with me. The guy kept his car for 2 months before he reported it. He had all the time in the world to do it. And he later sued me for $18,000 for his radiator, which he's going to lose completely, that one. And probably
car radiator costs $18,000 in Chile.
It's expensive one. It's a 1998 Hyundai, 2 tones, mostly Bondo. and the guy's got the original radiator in there that was 20 years old. So
it must be difficult to get that stuff in Chile, or it wouldn't cost so much.
Well, he had moral problems, he said, and the terrible psychological damage that was done by a bullet hitting his radiator. I told him in civilized countries, more civilized like the U.S. or Europe, if you damage somebody's radiator with a bullet, you buy him a new radiator. You wouldn't. But my bullet didn't damage his radiator. There's no way the ricochet could have gone from 2 degrees angle of incidence to 15. It's physically impossible from Newtonian physics to do such a thing. And they didn't have a forensics guy. They determined that it was some cop that deals with stolen cars or writes tickets or something. And they allowed him to testify anyway. It was another sham, because you have to have experts who are forensics trained, physics trained to deal with these claims. And they don't do that in Chile. They put up whoever they want that makes their case. So those are the main charges where we know I'm not guilty of, but yet, I went to jail for them, and I was there because of those 2 false charges. I was initially condemned to 11 years in jail, convicted, and then the Supreme Court decided I didn't really have any intention when I fired at the ground to hurt anybody. And so they reduced my sentence to 6 years, 26 days. And 3 years, 26 days of that, or 25 days of that, were these 2 incidents, the radiator and the thigh wound. I wouldn't have gone to jail at all as a first-time offender if those things hadn't been added. And the prosecutors, the communists, knew that. And that's why they had to invent those 2 stories.
Was this person hospitalized or not?
Well, he went to the hospital, and the fatty part of your thigh, inside your thigh, that part of the thigh was really injured, and towards the center of the leg. And there was a wound there that they treated. It wasn't bleeding much, and they let him go. Right. So
did it impact his ability to walk for any long term, or?
He claimed, he get the licencia, they call it here. He didn't have to work for months afterward because he claimed it hurt and all that. It was a scam also. used whatever he could to get off work and made these outrageous claims. He never went to the follow-up treatment. Said he was too poor, couldn't even afford the bus fare to go to the hospital and get treated. So he had his sister come over, who's a licensed, some kind of LVN nurse or whatever equivalent, and she put his new bandages on. Looks to me like probably never had much of a bandage. I got a couple of pictures of his bandages on there. It's just a total charade, the guy, and he just played the system. He is a poor guy. I do think that's why the Communist Party put the lawyers up for him. But he lives in a very poor section of Valparaiso. So maybe somebody offered him money to do this. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but it's kind of strange,
Yeah.
But you can imagine somebody it's just like the Bolivians that haul drugs into Chile because they only make $200 a month where they live. You get offered to swallow in a plastic bag, cocaine or whatever, or $1,600, and you make that in 2 hours. It's a pretty big temptation.
Yeah, you mentioned people actually swallow the cocaine, then shit it out. It's kind of wild, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what they do.
I think that'd be hard on your stomach, but oh well.
Well, if it opens in your stomach, you're dead, obviously. So it's got other problems. But no, I was in jail with people who did that. That was they're just poor people. They're that trying to make ends meet for something that shouldn't be a crime in the first place. It's just one of those terrible things that as libertarians we realize the state does to us.
So you were arrested when this happened, right? And then who else was arrested?
Went home, didn't have any idea I'd hit anybody, and I actually didn't. But
okay,
when the cops came up, they told me that somebody was bleeding. I said, "Oh, that wasn't my intention." Tell them I'm sorry. It was just I shot at the ground to dissuade them, not to hurt anybody. And that of course was never heard in court because I wasn't allowed to testify. My lawyer made sure that I took the fifth, but they just taking the fifth is a presumption of guilt. So it was a mistake. My legal defense was a mockery of what lawyering should be.
A lot of Americans feel the same way. Did you have a public defender or hire your own lawyer or what?
I've had both. And before in court, I had the public defender, and that was agreed on with my private one. I think I was on my third private one by then. The lawyers here know nothing about ballistics, don't know what to ask for. It could have easily proven the case if they just read the report and showed I didn't have an exit hole in the pants. There's no exit hole in the pants. There was no through bullet, like they said, because they claimed the bullet disappeared. The bullet disappeared. It went out the backside of his pants, but yet there was no hole. So how did it go out the backside of his pants? So they didn't even read that. The lawyers are really low class in terms of their intellectual ability and their thinking ability, most of them. Although I've got one now that's suing the state, which is actually pretty smart. So we'll see. There are exceptions to every rule, as you know.
Well, there's certainly that case, in America where you certainly see plenty of people firing their guns. So how'd this go? How'd this trial go? What can you tell us about what happened here?
Yeah, we were all very favorable during the trial because the chemical evidence was in my favor. The fact that they didn't have correct drawings, they weren't able to identify the spots of the ricochets. They weren't able to put together a cogent theory about anything, really. The police, one police agency said I was 1.6 meters away from Almada. The other one said I was 3.43 in a different direction.
How do you get that much of a difference?
Well, because the test, they had 6 false testimonies, actually 5, I guess you can really say, who all had the same wrong story. That the Almada guy was right next to my pickup truck bed, that I got out of the car the first time, that I looked her straight in the eyes, even though they couldn't identify or say how tall I was or what color my eyes were, or a number of other things, that I directly fired at him, and they tried to explain that he lifted his knee. By lifting his knee, it made the ascending wound, which would actually make it worse. It makes it, it wasn't a cogent story. And then you look at the videos and he's not there. He's not next to my pickup truck. So the second police department decided, no, that's not true. That all those 6 liars or 5 liars are lying. He was not there. They were all coached probably, but nobody cares that they're coached either. Probably the district attorney did that. Got all these people to lie. But anyway, the judges threw out all the scientific evidence and just believed those 5 witnesses that I was there, that I attacked it, intentionally tried to shoot him at 1.6 meters away. Remember, my arm is 1 meter, your arm is 1 meter, and the gun barrel is going to be another 20 centimeters beyond my finger. So if it's 1.6 meters, there's only 40 centimeters, which is, talking about that distance. So they did some scientific analysis, study of that there would be like a burn on the clothes, from the flame comes out of the barrel. Couldn't find any of that. It wasn't there because it didn't happen. I shot at the ground when you opened the door, and you can see it in the video. If I were to show you to you now, you could see it. The door's open, and they're attacking, and I shot at the ground. So nobody was in front of me or anything else. At any rate, the other cops had to change the story, but they had problems too because I couldn't get the angle the way they wanted to. So they said that I shot from my door being closed, but the window down. And there's videos on my website that show the window was up. He opened the door, and I shot when the door was open, not leaning on the open window to get a little higher, a few more centimeters higher than I actually was, the muzzle of my pistol. So they all had these conflicting, ridiculous stories that were concocted and showed malice. It showed like they intentionally knew that they were getting after me for something I did not do, but they were going to make it work for them so that I was convicted in one way or another.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's what happened.
Yeah. Were they trying to were they trying to, put an ideology on you, or was there, because it sounds like to me, you were fighting all these communists, and communists are pretty miserable, but they're also pretty well organized. And when you get them together like this, a lot of things can happen. Bad things can happen to good people.
Well, you have to remember that since I've been here in Chile, I've been known as the most liberal, and that's in a sense libertarian, economist in the country. I've had full-page newspaper spreads in Concepcion and many in Santiago's La Tercera or the main Santiago Daily. I've been published in letters to the editor 1,507 times, and although many of those are repeats, in other words, the same letter gets published, 5 or 10 times, and those all go into the count. I still had many, many hundreds of original pieces, equivalent of short op-eds that were published everywhere. I'm well known in Chile. And then I have sites in which I teach. I'm also a Baptist pastor, and so I preach online still to this day. I have plenty of opportunity to express my views. And I was well known as a libertarian. And so there's even a video of me holding up my H&K, Heckler & Koch 45 caliber weapon in the video, saying, if it comes down to it, you're going to kill me or you're going to kill us, then we're going to shoot back. That's what I said. We're not going to be aggressors, or we're libertarians, but we're not going to let you just trample on us. And so they had all that against me. They knew who I was. I'm a well-known figure in Chile, especially now among certain groups, many on the right and many on the left. So yeah, to have me in their clutches was what they wanted. That's true.
Yeah. Did these people who stopped the car know who you were or not?
No, they wouldn't have any. I won't think so anyway. They shouldn't have had any clue.
Okay, yeah. What happened to your car?
It was repaired, so I still have it.
Okay. You still have it. That's got some stories to tell.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't afford a new one. I mean,
Were you hurt any or anything like that, or not?
Hurt? No, as I said before, I wasn't injured at all.
And nobody was hurt. And nobody else was hurt, really.
No, they had the guy who auto-inflicted his own, or somebody hit him with a screwdriver or something. I don't know, but no, there was nobody else that was hurt either.
Okay, so what else happened at the trial? Tell us about the trial, when the trial started.
Well, there were some liars there. Some of the cops made up stories that just certainly were true. They conflicted with other cops who were eyewitnesses undercover. That was sort of interesting to hear, and it was terrible. I mean, have somebody lie, and you understand why you have a 9th commandment and the 10 commandments of not bearing false witness. I mean, it's my life on the line, and there's somebody just telling a lie, and he's a cop, a guy named Uribe. And there are others there who also gave some strange evidence, but the great majority of the evidence that was presented, I think, was favoring me, that there was no assault on my part. I didn't go after anybody intentionally. I just tried to dissuade people from attacking me. And nobody denied that they attacked me. It's just that they said my defense was disproportional. And Chile is a stupid law. Again, if you get attacked with a knife, you have to defend with no more than a knife. You get attacked with a rock, it has to be another rock. You can't defend yourself with a knife. In the U.S., when I was trained for my concealed weapons permit, they told me don't show up for a fair fight. If they come at you with a knife, that can be in your chest within 9 seconds at 30 feet away. You need to pull out your gun and have it make sure the bullet's in the chamber, and you aim for the heart of the head so that you can't testify in the future, and you'll help and do a big service for law enforcement. Very different than here, and here it's a mockery of self-defense principle in Chile, and people don't know about guns. They claim stuff like for instance, the bigger calibers are only used by the military, a 45 or a 40 because it sounds big. Or they see an assault rifle. They call it an assault rifle. It's just a hunting rifle that that you can get at Walmart. That they look like assault rifles. They're made that way. They kind of look cool, right? But you know that if you're in the U.S. because you're in that. But here they're bringing in military grade weapons and they're smuggling them in from wherever, and it's just a bunch of nonsense. But they believe it because they're ignorant people here.
So what happened? So what happened with the trial? You were on trial.
Well, the trial was just a total. It was decided before I stepped into court. I mean, I didn't get to speak, and the lawyer said it was just so obvious. He didn't even have to go through to point out the obvious misgivings or problems with the case. Oh yes, he did, and he didn't do it. He just totally failed. So I was condemned at the maximum. I was convicted for 11 years as a result of. They had to use me, as they call it here, being the poster child of the right, or a leftist scapegoat, because they needed to teach the right people on the right, and when libertarians are considered on the right here, a lesson that if we defend ourselves against leftists, then we go to jail. And it worked like a charm. There was a guy named Gonzalez Acevedo. 3 years later, this gun club member, and didn't pull his gun out of his glove compartment when he was in Serona. They stopped him, in front of his car and behind him, and they killed him. He was trying to defend his wife with his hands instead of getting his gun out, probably because he knew about my case, and they killed him. So unfortunately, that's it's a very violent country, and it didn't used to be when I first got here, but it is now, and it has been for the last 6-7 years.
Most people don't speak that well of violent countries, but yes. So what else can you tell us about the trial?
Well, let's see. There was the head judge, a guy named Alonso Arancibia, is also somewhat of a perverted guy. He breaks the law, and he was charged with taking lewd photographs of women at his health club in Concon, which is a nice part of town here. 46, I think it was 46 women, without their permission. And so in other countries, maybe he would have been impeached or taken off the bench. But last year they heard the case and he was found guilty. But then instead of taking him off the bench, they gave him a 3-month suspension at half salary. He probably went to Europe and enjoyed some time. And then came back to be judge again. He was the one who was the head of my 3-judge panel. We don't have juries here. If I had a jury, it probably would have been a different story, but we don't have juries in Chile. It's not common law.
Okay. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But okay. So how were you still expecting, a not guilty verdict? I mean, when did you realize your goose was cooked, so to speak?
Well, I was expecting at the trial a not guilty verdict because the evidence was so much in our favor. He also, that my lawyer brought up a special clause at the last day. I think it was Article 10, Section 11 of the Criminal Code, that says when a man's in overwhelming circumstances, the proportionality argument no longer holds, and he can actually use something like a gun to defend himself when he's got so many attackers coming at him, which I did. I clearly had that, but they didn't care. So I was thinking, well, I mean, at least they'll drop the 2 attempted murder charges. And they didn't. They convicted me of 2. One is called intent to attempt murder, whatever that is. And the other is attempted murder. And in Spanish, it's called homicidio frustrado and intento de homicidio frustrado. Those are the two words they use. So despite all the evidence, I was just shocked that I would be convicted of things like that's implied that I had intention, that I actually went out there and tried to kill people and wasn't able to, which is what attempted murder means in Chile, just like in the US. But that's what they got me on because of the, you got to remember, I was on every news channel. I mean, it was months, might have been 4, 5, 6 months. They still played those videos about me, what happened here. It was I became quite famous, a household word, even used in some of their soap operas. And they started calling me the Reñaca gunman. And in Spanish, it's called el pistolero de Reñaca. And that's what I became in the eyes of all these people for a long time. And even now, I carry that stigma, which I proudly do because it was an unjust conviction. And I made so many friends. That was the other kind of neat thing about it is Chile has 20 million people, and I think that safe to say 10% of them are very, very hard right or libertarian. And that's 2 million people that are friends. I also have probably half the country or close to it that hate me as Satan himself, or something, so I have made more enemies than I ever had too. But
so you were all over the news, yeah. The Reñaca gunman, the American who fired his gun in Chile, yeah.
Right.
So how did the trial go? I mean, is it trial by jury? Is it trial by judge or
3-judge panel, no jurors? Yeah.
And they all said guilty. So it was a 3-0 or 2-1?
3-0.
Yeah, and I guess that was pretty fast.
No, it wasn't fast. It was long and drawn out, and they refused to let the public watch. It was 14 days of trial, which meant 3 full weeks, basically. And they did a good show trial. I mean, they made it sound like they were going to see all the evidence. We didn't get. People were scared to come and testify on my behalf. They thought they would be hurt. They're so cowardly here. They wouldn't. There's this one girl I mentioned, a young lady.
Yeah.
She said she couldn't stand to think that I would be accused and condemned for something I didn't do. So she testified, but at her great risk, because if you testify against the left here, they will come and take you out or take your business out. I mean, it's dangerous to do. And if I had more witnesses that day that would actually show up in my favor, I probably wouldn't have been convicted on at least a couple more. But if they'd allowed me to have a ballistics expert. We tried to get one, and there was some technicality that the prosecution used, so they eliminated my ballistics expert, which would have cleared me. The ballistics don't wash as far as being just showing ricochets rising off the ground 75 centimeters or rising 35 centimeters into a radiator when it's fired at such a long distance and at a shallow angle or sharply at a sharp angle. Either way.
So anyway, so you think this kind of reflects very much a leftist bias in Chile right now?
Oh yeah, I think that's an understatement. Yeah, we have a strong group of rightists, but remember they're very cowardly. If they were really from the right, why didn't most of them write me or in jail or send $10 to my wife or send some food or just make a nice gesture? Why didn't they? Where were they? They were all scared. And I do
they didn't come to your defense, which I find quite unfortunate. Yeah.
But not to my defense. Why didn't they talk about it? No, this guy was really innocent. He was doing the right thing. Only one guy, Sebastiani Scared, his father, got on the videos and their channels and defended me. The rest of them were, to this day, they're quiet. They're just scared. And before, I was so popular in the press, everything I would write, would all have a very high chance of being published in all these newspapers throughout the country. None of them will even consider a letter from me now. They're all so scared. It's truly a cowardly society, selfish, self-centered, a society full of people that don't love their neighbor as themselves, that only worry about their own security, prosperity. I can't be more negative about the vast majority of Chileans. And I'm not trying to generalize here. I know that there are the 5 or 10% of Chileans, which are really good people that would defend their country or their neighbor, etc. But they're few and far between compared to the great mass of those who would not.
Servility is a problem everywhere, John. I've heard. Do you think that culture of just following orders, just going along? Do you think maybe that goes? I've heard that might go back to some of the Incan influence that was there.
Yeah, that's an interesting question too. Remember, the Southern Cone countries, which are Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, and maybe Paraguay, especially the first three, were tremendously influenced by European immigration, especially in Argentina. So here we have a large number of people from Europe, and so and they're still whiter skin and stuff, and not Incan or really it's Mapuche Indians or other tribes here influenced. So that maybe a non sequitur as far as Chilean culture goes. There are a lot of mestizos here, persona of the mixed blood, but I don't know that it's really true that has anything to do with their cowardliness. Maybe it's the Roman Catholic influence, the pacifism, the glorification of poverty, because Catholics aren't necessarily against self-defense, but they are in favor of the mendacious, lying, cheating society, because those are kind of venial sins, right? They are not mortal sins for the Catholics. I think that may have some influence on the way they think, and they try to do things for themselves. If you get a friend in Chile, they're very loyal, more loyal than a friend in the U.S. would be in most cases. But to get one is very hard. And for the most part, people are very superficial and big theater and storytellers. So I tend to think Chileans are not a good breed. Some of them play in the prisons that they came over with Pedro de Valdivia prisoners. And that's probably true. But this is talking about 500 years ago. Is that still in the bloodstream that people are, prisoners cast out of the dungeons in Spain and brought here? There were only 150 of them or something, intermarried. Yeah. I don't buy it. A lot of these stories are kind of silly to me. It's just there's a cultural problem that they have with their worldview that makes them this way. Just like we have a different one from being Americans by birth. We were raised a different way of thinking.
Yeah, did Bort? But now Bort got elected president but he's up for election this year. So
no. You can only run once.
Okay. So you can only run once. So you can only run once. So
wait, excuse me. I should clarify. You can only run one consecutively. If you're like Bachelet or Sebastián Piñera, you can sit out for 4 years and then run again and win. That's possible. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So he must think he's fairly popular. He wouldn't try to run again. Who's opposing Boric this year?
I don't think Boric has any illusions that he's not popular. His popularity is in the toilet, so he's not popular. Even the left doesn't like him because he didn't do it enough. I think his approval rating last I heard was like 16% or something. I may be wrong about that, but it's one of the lowest in history. So he's not popular. Currently, one of his I think she's cabinet member, Jeanette Hara, is a member of the Communist Party, which we have an official Communist Party here. And she was in the Boric government, and she is the one that the left has put up in their primary to be the candidate from the left. So we have a communist, her, who's claiming to be not really a communist now because it sounds bad, but she's a communist, and she's involved with all these protests and burning stuff, and you can see her on film heralding all that's happening and lauding it. She is there, as well as the four candidates from the right. One of them, a guy named Parisi, is a university professor in Miami, also here in Santiago occasionally. He's really just a center-left kind of guy. He's more rational than the other ones in many respects. I think some of his ideas are actually closer to libertarian ideas than any of the rest of them, but not in general. In general, he's just another center-left guy. I certainly don't, when I say that, I don't classify him as a libertarian. I'm just saying he's a little more favorable on certain issues. And then you have Johannes Kaiser, and we talked about last time, and you have Jose Antonio Cast, and you have Evelyn Matei. Ellen Matei ran and was defeated by Bachelet in 2014. She was more libertarian then. Now she's very much a centrist globalist, just like Jose Antonio Castro is now. He used to be kind of a center right, a little bit more rightist when he ran before. And Kaiser's new, and people have a lot of hope for him on the far right. But
so you got out about 7 months ago, and you got out earlier than expected because you were sentenced to 11 years. So,
but wait a minute, the Supreme Court lowered my sentence to 6 years, 26 days, as I said.
Okay.
So I got out about 8 months prior to my sentence being completed, where it's also unusual because most people go out when they're eligible for parole half the time, a little bit more than half the time. They forced me to stay at the maximum, which is the guards that could have let me out too, and they didn't.
Yeah, because you were the quote dangerous man with the gun, unquote. So what do you think? Do you think things are better now than they were in 2019, or are they worse, or
worse?
People are
and no, it wasn't because I was a dangerous guy with a gun. It's what the court specifically said, as well as the Minister of Justice, John, has not modified his beliefs, values, and attitudes that he learned from the United States. That's why I had to stay in prison, because of what I thought. Because
of course, thought crime.
Right.
Well, you know, I'm trying to think of any more details we have on this issue. It's a pretty wild story. I knew a guy who was in Peru, in jail in Peru for about a year or so. South America
6 years is very different. 5.5, 6 years is very different. And you got to remember, in Chilean jails, even in the colectivo jails, you're in a room that's maybe 1.5 meters by maybe 2 meters, with 7 or 8 beds stacked up, sometimes 5 levels of bunks, and that many people in that small space, with everything to deal with, from the music to the farts to the foul language to the loud television, whatever else. I mean, you are there suffering with those people, and only one toilet for up to 50 people, at least 25 people, and many times 50 people in some of these colectivo jails. In other places, it's only 4 or 5 per toilet, but still, it's unbearable, especially because you live with people who don't have hygiene. So you get sick all the time. You know?
Yeah, I can imagine. So you certainly it certainly makes you hate the state after you're in prison. I mean, it's definitely
I was a minarchist before I went in. I thought there was still something the state could do well. And then with COVID, which is another scam, I mean, I wasn't vaccinated, and 94% of Chileans are vaccinated. That'll tell you about the culture.
Yeah.
Much more than Americans. And my wife, I couldn't see her for almost 2 years, 1 year and 10 months, I believe, except for a very brief occasion a few times, because she wasn't vaccinated. They thought that she was going to do something to me, or I was going to do something to her.
Yeah.
It's terrible abuse, but that's what they did for us for a long time. And it really is tremendous suffering that you have to understand what's going on here. Yeah. Hard to believe, I know, but it is the way things were. And I've written about it in my book. I hope that you all will be able to get a copy of it when it comes out. Bearing the Cross.
And yet you still seem to want to stay there.
Well, that's not true. No, if I'm an Italian citizen. I used to be an American. I renounced my American citizenship in 2015. So 10 years ago, I'm an Italian. I became officially Italian in 2016. They proved it in 2017. I took the oath.
Are you also Chilean?
Yeah, also Chilean. Unfortunately, that's one reason they had against me. So I'm a dual citizen still, but I don't have to file forms for the U.S. or anything.
I've never had anybody on here who renounced U.S. citizenship. So tell us, what was that like?
Well, it's a little harrowing in the sense that, well, what are they going to do? America doesn't want you to go, and so they charge you exit fees. And I got in at the last minute, which meant the exit fee for me was only $1,700, where now it's maybe triple or quadruple that. And not only that, they do a final international wealth count, and they give you a tax of 30%. Your international wealth, and if you don't pay it, they don't let you renounce. You're forced to be a citizen of the United States. That idea of love it or leave it.
Well, this
doesn't apply really.
This is one thing too. Why people are renouncing is America is one of the few countries that has income tax taxation no matter where you are. I mean, if the Chileans don't care if you come to America and make money here. So anyway, well, that pretty
That's
much.
not true either. The Chileans technically have the same rule like the Philippines and Russia, that a worldwide
Okay.
income, but you can get around it easier with
But
Chile.
the point is, this is something that most countries don't do. There are very few. I mean, maybe there are less than 10 countries that have citizenship-based taxation, no matter where you are.
True. Yeah, I think that's true. Here, it's not just citizen; it's permanent resident. You got a permanent residence card in Chile. You got to pay no matter where you earn your money, and most people don't. But
well, I think we pretty much covered this story, John. I don't know if there's anything else left to say about it. Do you think the prospects for Chile are pretty good, or I mean, overall, is it going to get better, or is it going to get worse, or is it? I mean,
I think all of Latin America suffers from the same thing, and I don't think outside of another revolution where you get a guy like Pinochet to come in and put in people that are libertarian and they're thinking like Jose Piñera, you can have advances. You have continual degradations in the public policy that have led to what we've got now. You've got sheep-like people who don't read, that don't use much logic, that live the life by cheating and lying. It's very common here. People cheat their way through college and then are surprised when they know nothing when they get out, kind of thing. And then they copy the U.S. or Europe to come up with solutions to things. Things don't always work. There are issues like in every other Latin American country. I'm not just criticizing Chile. So until you have institutions change, like sending Baptist missionaries, for instance, to really change the way people think about fundamental issues like property rights, about lying, trust, to just basic things, contracts, things will not get better here in that sort unless you have, again, the revolution that forces the left and the ignorant to be kept in their place. Then it might. Then you might be able to advance again. But I see very little hope under democracy from doing it. Democracy has been the worst thing that could ever happen to Chile, frankly. And being an anarcho-capitalist myself, I think states in general are terrible, evil things that only degrade society for the great majority. Of course, states like socialist states include, it benefits tremendously a very small group of people. That's why they like it, right? Because they gain a tremendous amount at the expense of others. Interventionism in general is like that. So Chile is plagued with interventionism. The people from the right talk about interventionist states, that the state will improve our quality of life. It will make life better for us if we have a good, solid state with good people in it. This never occurs. The states are manned by human beings that are fallible and self-interested, like every other human being, and take advantage of the state and don't really care that it harms so many people. And that's the reality of Chile. So, is it a bad place to live? Well, maybe if you look at the judicial power. I mean, I was condemned for something I did not do. Do two things. And one thing I should have never been condemned for is discharging a firearm in public. I mean, imagine the stupidity in that. If you're in America, you go out in the backyard and you shoot your gun, you have to go to jail for 3 to 5 years. That's what Chile says. You're on the beach, you launch one over the ocean, you go to jail for 3 years in Chile. What an insane law for an American. And when I was in jail, by the way, they wouldn't let me out early. I had to stay the full term, except for the last 5 months, because one court, including the Supreme Court, affirmed that John Cobin has, and I quote, beliefs, values, and attitudes from the United States or his country of origin that has not been modified yet. And as long as he doesn't modify those beliefs, values, and attitudes, he has to remain in jail. And what's worse about Cobin is he's loquaz, is the word they use in Spanish. He's eloquent in the way he can speak and present his ideas. And that's a danger because he might convince other Chileans of his ideas.
It does seem, though, that Chile is, because it's gotten so, I think it's the richest country in South America. It seems like wealth and wealth almost. I don't think wealth necessarily has to mean that you have extinction level birth rates.
No, well, we have immigration to supplement it. Remember, Chile makes its money primarily from copper, as well as a little bit from wine and lumber and salmon and things like that. But the copper prices have been high, and Chile produces 36% of the world's copper, and that's a lot. And then they sell a lot to China. China is a trading partner. Then than the U.S. So Chile prospers through its natural resource production, although the individuals are not very productive here. But it has many cultural problems. The level of mistrust or distrust between people is so high that it causes all sorts of problems with relations and human relations and families. People have a hard time trusting other people. It's a little different among evangelicals, a little bit, not entirely, and some really conservative Catholics here. But that's the tiny minority. The vast majority live in a different world than you live in the U.S. And this really affects whether people are willing to have children and get married or have any kind of relationships, like even a sexual relationship outside of marriage is a problem, and so people avoid it completely.
Yeah.
Because of their attitudes culturally. So there are serious problems in Chile. It's not a paradise by any means, and since 2019 and the social upheaval we've seen, it's even worse than that. We've got just terrible numbers of people come out showing their true colors, and unfortunately, that's what the country's like.
Yeah, the benefits of a high trust society, they're you can't really measure them, but they're definitely there. It's I've granted sometimes you hear these anecdotal stories, but I hear about some countries where if you leave your laptop in a taxi cab, the taxi driver will come looking for you.
Right.
That to me is a good example. That is what you have when you have a high trust society.
Right.
I would certainly want to live in a society like that. And part of the reason why I think the cab driver does that is because maybe the cab driver is confident that if something like that happens to him, then somebody will come looking for him if he leaves his laptop somewhere. I would want to live. But and I don't know how you get trust back once it's lost. It does seem though that government is definitely one of those things that tries to promote low trust societies. Not to mention, I think the left really does whatever they can to destroy our bonds and our social institutions. I mean, they work to destroy the associations that hold society together, like the churches, like the various clubs, or, in America, it might be some of the fraternal organizations like the Moose or the Elks or the Eagles.
Economists call that institutions, and Douglas North and Williamson and others have talked about this. And institutions that emerge spontaneously, like Hayek says, are the ones that last. Religious institutions and other institutions, mutual assistance societies that come up without the state, are the ones that really help hold people together and change them so that they are a society where you can trust. It doesn't happen automatically in nature. You have to have good institutions that produce a society with trust. Chile does not have those. Most of Latin America does, and Chile is not worse. Chile has been the leader that bucks the trend, in that it adopted through Pinochet free market reforms. And I don't think we should be so critical of Pinochet. He had some foibles, like Thomas Jefferson did, for sure. But what happened with the DINA and the so-called tortures, the 1,296 missing, there's not a lot of evidence that this was just fabrication and hype of the left that many people in the United States have accepted that are actually not true. That's another program in and of itself. I know you mentioned.
Oh, really? Yeah. So you don't even think there was what? How many did anybody disappear? I mean, it's so hard to trust the left on any of this stuff anymore, and they're so dishonest. I mean,
well, there were about 3,000 people who either went missing or were killed on the left. Those leftists, and there were about, if I don't remember the statistics exactly, but about 800 people from the right or policemen and military who were killed by the Marxists, who had their own arms and were committing a kind of almost a civil war. So there were deaths on both sides, but the most of the claims of torture and all that were highly exaggerated or highly localized, and it was not as widespread as what many people consider. Many Chileans laud those days as being the best days in the history of the country. And after seeing what's happened to me and to others in the last 10 years, I would have to agree. It was, Pinochet had his faults, like Jefferson, who had children by his slaves, which we wouldn't consider very libertarian.
Well, that's another debatable question too, though. But
right.
So well, one thing we do know is that maybe the public, the one thing that's been constant in all of this really for the last 100 years is that the college professors are all socialists, and that they promote all this nonsense, and that's why it didn't go away, even though you and I both saw the Berlin Wall come down, and in spite of that, we could build 1,000 Berlin Walls and tear down 1,000 Berlin Walls, and these ideas would still be alive.
Yeah,
because of these college professors. Getting back to the copper mining, guys, you were there when the 33 happened, right?
Yes.
I mean, having a great uncle who got killed in a coal mining accident, I was really following that a lot. I mean, the whole thing with the copper miners, and it's now been 15 years, but they were underground for about 2 months after this mine collapse, and they had a pretty big area, but I was confident they were going to get out alive, but boy, that was really, it was one of those amazing stories to watch from afar, and they did eventually get those out.
It was fantastic, but remember, there's other sides we need to emphasize here.
Yeah.
And that the Chileans and their strategy for drilling the hole and meeting with the miners down below failed, and also the one I believe from Spain or somewhere in Europe, they could not find it. It required Jeff Hart and his team from Texas, who knew how to drill holes really well and had American ingenuity, innovation. They're the ones that hit pay dirt and found the hole. And those miners owe their lives to those American, tremendous Americans. That's something you don't see as much in Latin America as you do up there. So I always give great kudos to Jeff Hart and the others that were involved with his team in saving those miners. And it was a fantastic story to watch and follow. Everybody here was watching it every day on television, even in the office, what the latest was on those guys trapped down below.
To me, and something like this is what I call, I think patriotism is a very negative thing generally, but this is the one positive form of patriotism, because it was one of those things that really brought the entire country together. Let's get these guys out of the hole. I suppose it was somewhat similar to what was going on with the Iranian hostages in here. It's, let's except those guys weren't in quite as precarious, a different kind of precarious situation, but as opposed to being underground in a big hole, and the hole apparently was about the size of a football field, so they did have some space to walk around. But man, that would drive a guy nuts, I would think, after being down there in the Copiapo and Copiapo, yeah. You have anything else to say before we go? I mean, you're not really very optimistic about Chile at all, are you?
Well, again, I don't have a job. I'm trying to start a business. If you look at my website, policyofliberty.com, where we just were, you can see that I'm starting an AI business where I'm helping people who are libertarians and falsely accused file their own paperwork and stuff using the AI. So I'm doing that. But if I had my dithers, if this doesn't work, I'd be on the plane to Italy. As soon as I recover a little more financially, if I can sell the stuff, I wouldn't stay in this country. It's too much of a danger for me. However, if I can get acquitted publicly after all this and get exonerated and get paid by the state, if that actually happens, or we go to Costa Rica International Court and they tell Chile they have to do that for me, it might be different then, because then not every crime puts me back in jail, and I'm not a repeat offender, and there are other consequences. But if anybody's really positive on Chile right now, they have to be. They really need to re-examine things. And some people are going to say, like I have friends that still say, but where else are you going to go in the world? It's bad, but it's still better than anywhere else, just about. I mean, Hong Kong and Singapore are two influenced by either China or fascist social laws. And not only that, it's too expensive to live there. Switzerland also. And Switzerland isn't looking for immigrants. If you don't speak one of the 4 languages, you don't get to go to Switzerland. So, I mean, where do you go? And then they point out, southern Argentina, southern Chile. Well, there's a good point to be made for those kind of places. But when you have women involved, women have a different perspective than we do as guys. We can imagine going living in a farm country where we have water-driven energy or wind or whatever, and we can live off the land and hire people to do farming for us or grow stuff or run cattle or for us it all sounds like paradise, but women in my experience as a consultant don't like that, especially rich women when they're used to having their Bentley driving around Dallas or Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
They're not interested in moving down to a place in southern Chile where there's no supermarket and
Yeah,
5,000 people live there. It's
they
just
don't
not
want to
going
lose
to
their
happen.
they don't want to lose their standard of living. Well, that's great. I
Yeah.
don't think you have anything else to say before we go, John.
No, if you're ready to turn it off, that's fine. I'm glad I was able to be on your show
Yeah,
today
well,
and
yeah,
clear this up. I hope you'll look at my website and others will,
yeah,
and look at the book, and that people will become informed about my case and start following it. I
yeah,
think it'll be very interesting to see if we can make some traction as libertarians and or as Baptists. I'm a Baptist too. Both reasons I was persecuted by. And if we can make a stand on this and show the state how evil it is, I think we'll do good for our own cause and make some lemonade out of the lemons, because that's
yeah.
basically what I've got to do. I mean, it's so destructive what happened to me.
Yes. Well, please like the show, subscribe to the channel, go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Check out my Substack, and people are giving me money to buy me a coffee. Thank you, John Cobin. I'm Chris Baker, and we're out.